Hey guys, it's HelpingHans here, and today we're going to be going over the Australian Defence Battlegroup here, and we're going to be giving you a build order to go along with it. Let's begin. Right, so you've loaded in a game of Company Heroes 3 and you're starting off as the Brits. First thing you want to do if you're going for the Australian Defence Battlegroup build order is you need to select that commander immediately, which looks like this over here, and then you want to immediately click confirm. Then you want to select the Australian Light Infantry section. They cost 0 command points, so you can call them on straight away. And right at the start of the game, you will have enough resources to call them in immediately as well. So that's what you want to do. So you instantly get them, you call them out, and then with your next set of resources, you're then getting your company command post up as well. So let's get on to the Australian sections themselves. They are 300 manpower and they are a very good anti-infantry unit. They also have the ability to lay some sandgar walls, which is unique to them, which is this kind of sandbag with wire on the opposite side, so your opponent can't use this cover. Normally, if you're making sandbags like so, you can use both sides of cover, and your enemy could use them as well. But if you build the sandgar wall, like so, the enemy can't use the opposite side because there's that wire there, which is quite handy. They also can build standard sandbags, wire, tank traps, and also put down a resource cache as well. One thing to note about the Aussies is that unfortunately they have no anti-tank capability, which makes them a bit rough if you get just dived on by light vehicles. This is why you'll probably need a bit of diversity in your AT. Normally with sections you can have AT rifles, and they also can be upgraded with the AT grenade ability. These guys do not have that ability. They do have this passive of the sharpshooter training. So the sharpshooter ability slows the target Vet 1 by 25% for the duration. So that's good if, like, say, you've got a close range squad like assault grenadiers or panzer grenadiers trying to close the distance. You activate this ability, it'll slow them down getting closer. So they, if they're closer, they'll be doing more damage because obviously their accuracy is improved at close range. So that's a good ability to deny the enemy getting closer. Veterancy 2, the sharpshooter ability always kill an enemy soldier, unless if they're retreating. I've had it miss sometimes when they're trying to retreat. But if it's shooting at a soldier, that's not retreated, it'll always kill somebody. So that'd be good for, like, if you're up against Obus or Darton, things like that, or maybe a sniper you caught out in the open, you could pop it when they're Vet 2 and you're always guaranteed to kill that unit. And all weapons in the squad have a chance to insta-kill an enemy soldier at low health when Veterancy 3 as well. So this is a 35 munitions ability, which actually puts on a marked target and will slow the enemy by 25% and last for 5 seconds. So it's a great way if you want to put in a lot of damage onto an individual squad. Maybe it's a high value squad rushing in and you want to focus that down. Popping that is a good way to trying to either kill that squad quickly or force them to retreat very quickly and take them out of the fight. And they also have the ability to get upgrade with scope Lee Enfield rifles. This increases their vision range by 5, and they have 25% accuracy versus units in cover. So if you're taking a pitched engagement, you're in green cover and your opponent's in green cover, that the Lee Enfields, the scope Lee Enfields will give you that extra edge over those opposing units. So we'll just do a quick demonstration here of the Aussies. Here we have 2 Aussie sections here, and we'll have some enemy units here trying to close the distance here. There we have 2 squads closing the distance. I know the Panzer Grenadier squad's the most dangerous unit here, so I'm going to focus fire this squad with my Aussie boys here. Going to probably shoot, get the other squad to focus it down as well. So we can focus down the number 1 threat here, which is these guys here. And as we've marked target it, we've done quite considerable damage to that squad already before it was able to do too much damage to my squad over here. Just going to do the engagement again here. Now we've vetted up the Aussies to Vet 3, and they're up against some Obers, or rather, sorry, I should say Sostroopen. We're going to focus them down here, and you can see that with this ability active, we're guaranteed to kill a guy on the squad here. That's giving us a huge edge in this fight, even though this Ober squad is considered, much more expensive and more elite than the Aussies. So definitely, good units, the Aussies, against kind of more of an elite squads to focus them down and kind of take them out. Also, you'll notice that those Obers both dropped MG42s. Unfortunately, if you have upgraded the this package, the Scope Lee Enfield rifles, that does mean they have taken up all the weapon slots and can't pick up drop weapons. So if you do have 5 drop weapons, you'll have to try and pick them up with your sapper squads instead. So what you're going to be doing with these first few squads is you want to be just obviously pushing forward, grabbing territory, grabbing as much territory as you can, and then the second unit you will be wanting to get is your Dingo scout car. Now the Dingo is one of the strongest vehicles in the game at the start of a match, and it's very effective against things like a 250 half-track, as well as a motorcycle or a Ketting Crane. Anything that the Axis can throw at you early game, the Dingo is going to be pretty good against it. Just got to make sure you keep it fairly close nearby your sapper squad so the sapper can repair it if it gets damaged. And the Dingo, even before it gets any veterancy, it has the ability to distribute medical supplies, which is another reason why you want it, because if you can keep it alive, you can then disengage it when some of your squads are taking a bit of lower their health a bit. For instance, let's say they're taking a fight, and you can disengage effectively without losing any men. Then you use the Dingo's ability here, distribute medical supplies by pressing Z on your keyboard. They can then heal all these troops, and then this ability will also heal any friendlies nearby as well. So this is why it's so important to keep a Dingo alive. And then on top of that as well, the Dingo is a fairly decent scout unit if we turn the fog of war off. The Dingo provides quite a lot of vision. And then if you vet it up as well, vet 3 gets a little bit more vision as well, as you can see there. So if you can try and keep it alive, it does act as a fairly decent scout unit. Probably one of the best scout units for the Brits other than the Stuart. The Dingo also has an amazing ability to use decoy flares as well as the forward observer artillery barrage. So for 35 missions, it can drop this artillery barrage on support weapons. And right now, what happens when you activate it, it'll get the 25 pounder in the base to bombard the area. Now this artillery has quite a wide scatter, and when I've been playing against it, for me, it's been nailing my squad. Like, quite a few times, this shot, if it lands directly on a squad, it will one-shot it as well. So it's very good, especially for it being only 35 munitions. And recently, in this current patch, this artillery barrage did get a buff as well. And then it does have decoy flares as well. This is cheaper for 50 munitions, and basically, this is all it does, is put down some fake flares, making Axis players think there's this kind of like this artillery barrage is being dropped here, but no, it's not. But what will happen is people will then think that's an artillery barrage, and then they'll move up their machine guns, and they'll unpack them, and that's a good time to push in and attack. So there's kind of like a nice fake out you can do to your opponents, and also the Dingo can tow. So if there's like a decrewed anti-tank gun or something like that, maybe you could tow away with that with the Dingo if it is safe to do so. So once you've got these 3 units out, I would then recommend getting yourself another Aussie section. So you're up to 2 Aussies, Sapper, and a Dingo. Now, right now, you're not looking too good for anti-tank capability. So as I said earlier, the Dingo is going to be good against the 250 motorcycle earlier on in the game. But it will struggle, especially when the DAC gets their vehicle upgrades, like the 250, maybe the 259 comes out. So you'll be up against things like, so this is the 259 variant, maybe the DAC player upgrades their 250 like this, and then this will be able to beat the Dingo. Also, when the DAC players just upgraded their half-tracks in general, they get more armor and more health, which makes them a lot more durable. And then the scariest thing you don't want to be fighting with, if you've got a Dingo, is something maybe like a Panzer Jaeger squad in the back of a 250 chasing down the Dingo. Now that's quite dangerous. So what you'll need now after this is a 2-pounder. So by the time you'll be up against maybe a Panzer Jaeger or maybe the 259 variant, or maybe some Wehrmacht vehicles like a 221 or whatever, you should have enough command points, because only the 1 command point is to call on a 2-pounder. And now the 2-pounder is incredibly cheap as well, only 220 manpower. Against these light vehicles, it pretty much will basically do the same amount of damage to these light vehicles, the same as a 6-pounder would. And actually, I kind of prefer the 2-pounder over the 6-pounder as well. I'll spawn in a 6-pounder right now, and you can compare the differences here. So the 2-pounder actually has a slightly bigger arc of fire compared to the 6-pounder. Can you tell from that? Slightly bigger. So it's got more coverage than the 6-pounder. 6-pounder is slightly narrower. And once the 2-pounder does get a stripe of veterancy, which we're going to give it now, it unlocks an amazing ability, which is called Target Weak Point. And this is a guaranteed pen on any Axis vehicle. So even a King Tiger, and I will demonstrate this for you guys now. So here we have an enemy King Tiger. Now the 2-pounder generally will pretty much bounce nearly every single shot automatically, right? As you'll see here, it will very unlikely ever be able to penetrate the King Tiger with its standard shot. However, if I activate Target Weak Point, every shot pens. Even 6-pounders haven't got a guaranteed pen chance, right? And notice the debuff it is applying as well. This is putting a debuff of minus 50% speed, and it disables any vehicle's weapons when it hits, and it will keep applying that debuff for like 3 or 4 shots in a row. So we'll do that again. Actually, the 2-pounder just penned there from the front of the King Tiger, but that's a rare chance. So if you compare that to the 6-pounder, the 6-pounder's only got the entrenchment, which increases its rate of fire by 15% and reduces incoming damage by 25. So as long as you can keep the 2-pounder alive, guys, it'll be absolutely instrumental in the ability of you taking down maybe some big Axis heavies. So when the 2-pounder gets veterancy as well, it gets more rotation rate, 25% weapon penetration at veterancy 2, and then 3, 20% damage reduction, 30% more rate of fire, and 25% weapon penetration as well. So all that extra weapon penetration will really help out against those mediums and heavies later on in the match, so it'll be more reliably penetrating that type of armor. So yeah, I highly recommend a 2-pounder. So this is your build order now so far for your early game. So 2 Aussies, Dingo, Sapper that you start initially with, and the 2-pounder. The issue here is if a vehicle, for instance, like maybe a 250 or maybe the flat feeling gets behind your 2-pounder or enemy infantry flank it, you could be seriously in trouble because this is kind of your only dedicated form of AT. So at this point in the game, guys, you'll also probably want to go for something like an infantry section upgraded with the AT rifles to give yourself a bit more flexibility and a bit more variety in your AT capability. For 50 munitions, you get the AT rifle package, and due to the recent update, 2.0 update, these AT rifles actually will scale better now in the late game. Their fire rate, I believe, has been increased as they vet up, so they'll be more reliable at, and dishing out more damage because obviously they're increased in fire rate. So with this AT rifle section, with your 2-pounder and maybe a couple of mines on the flank, thanks to your sappers, you should be in a pretty good situation against any kind of Axis kind of composition. So after that, guys, you'll be wanting to tech up. You get yourself your platoon command post out, and then you'll be thinking about what to go for next. Now, a cheap option could be going for something like a Humber. It is not that durable, and it is fairly squishy, so you'll need to make sure to be very careful with it and microing it very well. But the Humber is a great anti-infantry unit, decent scout and very mobile, has the ability to drop a smoke barrage and mark the area, so enemy units in the area are 20% easier to hit with all kind of units. So yeah, the Humber is a pretty good choice there, especially if you're even up against 250s and stuff, it'll do okay against those, as long as it's not fighting against Panzerjägers or anything with kind of like AT capability. This would be a good unit if you're up against someone who's spamming Bersaglieri. So this is the Italian infantry squads, these guys, because these guys have no AT capability. So the Humber is a great choice for fighting these guys. Now, if you're up against a lot of support weapons, I would recommend maybe going for the Bishop, because the Bishop is a good unit for smashing support weapons. So here we have a lot of units over here, and we'll just generally do a barrage here with our Bishop. And as it's a slow-firing vehicle, that's why it's good against slow-moving support weapons, because these units have got to unpack. And by the time they've started to unpack, the second round has probably already landed and doing some considerable damage to these units. So I would highly recommend the Bishop against slow-moving targets or even in-place targets. Maybe your opponent made a Luftwaffe early flat gun, for instance, so the Bishop would be a good answer for that. Or maybe you're up against coastals and someone's making obiches, your opponent, or is bunker spamming. He's making bunkers, he's got medical bunkers, repair bunkers, or they're getting the flat guns, or anything like all the obiches. All of these things. Like if you see someone like camping down like this and making these types of things, the Bishop is your answer. And you'd probably even want to go for a second one to help try and put the nail in the coffin, because I believe 2 Bishops firing on one obiche will kill it. So here we have 2 Bishops, and we both tell them to barrage this obiche. If you have 2 Bishops firing, you should be able to kill it within this one barrage from both of them. And it doesn't matter if the Axis player tries to repair. If they try to repair it with any sappers or the coastals, they're probably going to die due to the barrage as well. And there you go. Next one in a round should finish it off. So yeah, Bishops are very good at trying to nail kind of these static emplacements that can't move anywhere, right? So Bishop's a great answer for you there. Now the other thing you could go for is you could go for a Stuart. Now a Stuart is going to be very good against light vehicles. It'll be decent against infantry, and I highly recommend going for the tank commander upgrade with this, and then getting the reconnaissance scan mode for that important vision. So if I just turn off the fog of war real quick. So here's the Stuart as it is, and if we activate the reconnaissance scan, we can see so much vision. And now let's grab a Dingo and put it right next to it, just so you guys get an idea here. Now the Dingo is also a pretty good scout unit, but compared to the Stuart, it's nowhere near as much. Lined up right next to each other. We'll turn off the Stuart spotting mode vision, and I'll reverse the Stuart back, and then reverse the Dingo back slightly. So you can see that's kind of the Dingo's vision, right? It's natural vision there. But as soon as we pop the Stuart's spotting mode vision on, you can see we can see quite a substantial lot further, right? However, one thing to note, when you have enabled this ability, the vehicle does get 50% slower, and it only gains vision in the direction it is looking in, right? So you can see as I'm turning around, you won't gain that vision. Same thing like if you're playing Vermont with the Kettenkrad, you're only gaining vision, that extra vision in its specific direction it's currently looking in. So I highly recommend grabbing a Stuart with this build because it's very good for what you want to be getting later, which is the Archer Tank Destroyer, which we'll go into a little bit. The other thing you might want to be going for, guys, is going for the CMP truck. If you can afford this, I would recommend getting this kind of forward, maybe converting over to the medical variant, so you've got some forward reinforcement and forward healing. Maybe you'll end up losing the Dingo at some point, so therefore you haven't got access to the distribute medical supplies, and the only way you're going to get healing is if you retreat back to base and you've got yourself a field infirmary here. Potentially, let's say you're doing really well in a game of Company Heroes 3, you've got great map control, you've got some good fuel, you might even, if you're doing so well, you might even be able to skip everything in the platoon command post. You have to build the platoon command post to be able to unlock the company command post, but you could save all your fuel. You don't have to spend your fuel into a bishop or for Stuarts, right? Because if you think about it, you know, the side tick alone is going to cost you 25 fuel, and then, you know, the Stuart's 40 and the bishop is 60. So that's quite a lot of fuel going into maybe potentially a mediocre unit. You know, Stuarts are kind of mediocre. What I would advise, if you're quite ahead, maybe ignore everything out of your platoon command post, guys, and go for your next building, which is your company command post. Now, if you're up against a lot of Marders, I would recommend maybe going for something like Crusaders, because Crusaders are quite fast, and they can maybe get behind the Marders before they can take them out. So anything that's like a casemate vehicle, I guess maybe Stugs, or, you know, Marders, things like that. Maybe even the Elephant as well. If you can get behind it, the Crusaders, you know, they're quite cheap. Only 300 manpower and 70 fuel, so not a bad unit there. Also, you've got access to the Matilda straight away. For 20 more fuel and 60 more manpower, you can call on the Matilda. Now, the Matilda, I actually really like the Matilda. Generally, my go-to first allied tank, even if I'm up against Panzer IVs and things like that, or Panzer IIIs, because it is so beefy. It can take a lot of punishment. It's great even if you're up against units that have got maybe lots of Shreks or like AT weaponry like that, because it can shrug it off a lot of the time, unlike something like a Crusader. You know, even we compare it to something like the Grant. Now, the Grant is more likely to actually receive penetration hits from Shreks, from, you know, AT weaponry compared to the Matilda, because the Matilda's just got better armor. So I would recommend getting this out, and I find that the Matilda in general is just such a good anti-infantry unit. It will murder infantry like nobody's business. It's just so reliable at doing that. It's also fairly slow, however, though it does have it's kind of a get-out-of-jail-free card with its infantry support smoke, so we can pop this smoke ability here, and then reverse through the smoke to try and get itself out of trouble, potentially. Also, if it does receive a critical engine damage, it will then be able to repair it once it gets Vet 1. So, let's say here we have a Matilda that receives an engine damage. It goes a Panzerfaust, and it's now got engine damage. However, if the Matilda gains Vet 1, and then somehow you get out of combat, so let's now convert this over to me, and then let's say we pop smoke, that, you know, and then you go through the smoke, that should stop you from being in combat, and then you can see this passive coming in here, and then bing, there goes the heavy engine damage, and now we're back to our normal speed. So this is a great kind of way for this Matilda to get itself out of trouble automatically. And this is a passive, you haven't got to activate that yourself. And because the Matilda is so tanky, guys, it's just a great tank to lead the assault, and I highly recommend getting one out. After this, you might be wanting to go for things like a Grant, and also maybe a couple of footman guards as well. Now, the guards are also a fairly decent infantry. They're an elite squad. They are very expensive at 400. However, they do come with 2 bazookas, and they also come with kind of these submachine guns as well, these Thompson submachine guns, which makes them very good manpower at close range combat as well. Other thing, they have access to Gammon Bomb, which is good for, you know, clubbed up enemy units or support weapons you may want to take out. And when they do gain Veterancy 1, they have another awesome ability, which is called Staggered Shot. Now, this is great in conjunction with other units, because this, when they activate it, it will slow the target for the first shot, and the second volley will stun the vehicle. And then just imagine if you use that with your 2-pounder as well, because that slows and stuns as well. and then you then pile on with this damage as well, and then you've got your other tanks firing. You're putting in so much DPS onto kind of things like a King Tiger. So yeah, I'd recommend probably going for something like 2 guards, and then, you know, what you could do is one will do the stagger shot, wait for that to finish, then pop the other one with stagger shot, and that way you can easily kill Axis heavies. You'll also then be wanting to go for something like vehicle over repair as well. So this will allow your sappers here to over repair all your vehicles, making them even more tanky. And I'll also be thinking about buying the hazard removal package for my sapper squad so that they also can sweep mines, and that also gives them the ability to repair a bit faster by 2.5 per second. So there we go. As you can see here, it's got an extra 120 health. 540, and its standard maximum is 520. So we're doing the same thing here with this Matilda. You've got to wait until you see the green symbol above the head so you know that it's applied. But once again here, you can see that this vehicle's received an extra 120 HP. So when these vehicles receive this extra 120 HP, it basically allows them to, for the most part, survive another shot that otherwise would potentially kill them. It also allows them to shrug off kind of maybe some initial damage, and, you know, it just generates just great for more survivability. And the best thing as well is you can apply this to friendly vehicles as well. So here we have an allied Pershing as well, and we can do the same thing here with this ability, and we can over repair the Pershing as well. So, and this applies to all allied vehicles. You'll see this go up to another, 1320 HP rather than 1200. So an extra 120 HP on the Pershing as well. So if you've got time, always try and, you know, and your sappers are free and not doing anything, always, you know, give them the chance to pop this over repair on any kind of vehicle, even your ambulance as well. That'll give it a good chunk of extra HP. You almost double its health basically because it starts at 280, right? So definitely always use this over repair ability. I'd also recommend at this point, you know, once you have the over repair out now, is probably getting yourself a second sapper squad. So you're up to 2 sappers now, and, you know, because you'll also want your sappers to be planting mines, maybe doing other tasks as well. You can't always have, you know, you haven't always got time to be repairing. So getting the second one out allows you to, you know, just do more of the same kind of thing. Then what you'd be wanting to go for is probably your CMP 15 WT supply run truck. So what this does is this will, let's say you've got this fuel point here, you can send this truck out for 125 manpower, and it'll come back and it will collect some fuel here and then bring it back to your HQ and then leave the map. And basically you just get like a chunk of fuel for manpower. And if you want to try and let's say you're floating an extra manpower, but you haven't got much fuel, this is a nice way to maybe get fuel, you know, get yourself a lot of fuel early, or, you know, be able to get fuel to be able to buy that specific tank that you might be wanting to go for. Then you've had access to either the resource caches or the artillery tripwire flares. I'd probably go for the resource caches. Makes the resource caches tanky as well, and they're cheaper to build as well. So, you know, and later on in a match, especially team games, you're always wanting to be caching safe fuel points or safe like high munitions points as well, because all the, you know, extra munitions, extra fuel, more tanks, more off-map abilities, and more upgrades for stuff. So you're always wanting to be going for that during a match. So I'd go for that. And the last thing for this commander is you'll be wanting going for the Archer Tank Destroyer, costing 6 command points.
Archer TDs ready for construction.
You could have also gone for the Charged Creeping Barrage. Let's say you're floating lots of munitions, might be wanting to go for that. And let's say your opponent is going for a lot of maybe lighter vehicles, maybe faster vehicles, things like that. Maybe you want to go for the Creeping Barrage, or even your opponent's playing a lot of support weapon heavy. That is a good kind of ability to go. Again, if someone's bunker spamming, Creeping Barrage might be your option there. But however, 9 times out of 10, you probably wanted to go for the Archer. Now the Archer is an amazing tank destroyer, and it recently received a buff, this current patch, which allows it now to shoot on the move. Previously, it had to be stationary to fire. Still doesn't mean it's not going to miss while on the move, because as with all units, if they're moving and shooting, their accuracy is reduced. But you can now shoot while mobile. And now the Archer is equipped with a 17-pounder gun. It is quite vulnerable. So, like a Tiger, for instance, if it fights this in a 1v1 fight and the Tiger can return fire, Tiger will probably two-shot it and kill it, right? However, the Archer has amazing range. If I press E right now, you can see how far it can shoot. It can shoot all the way up to here, right? And now, let's go back to the Stuart. Okay, so here you can see the Archer, right? The Archer's general vision is up to here. However, if I press E, you can see it can shoot so much further than it actually can see. And this is why pairing it with a Stuart is so important. If I bring the Stuart up and have it next door to the Archer, bang, the Archer can shoot all the way up to its max range. So utilising a Stuart in conjunction with an archer is a match made in heaven, as the archer will be able to just keep smashing Axis heavies, and like things like the Tiger or the King Tiger can't retaliate. Because this is what you do as allies with this kind of pairing, is if the Tiger tries to push forward, you just keep kiting back, and your archer will be consistently pounding away on the Tiger and doing like 20 to 25% damage per shot. So what we're going to do now, guys, is simulate this King Tiger trying to chase down an archer paired with the Stuart, and you'll see how the King Tiger won't be able to do anything against this. So here we go. We'll have the King Tiger on attack move down here. And then we'll have the Stuart looking in the general direction here. Looking towards the threat. Here comes the King Tiger now. But what we're going to do is we're just going to keep kiting back slowly and then stopping every so often to let the archer get a shot in. Keep kiting back. King Tiger can't retaliate because we're utilising the range of our vehicle. I've got to be good, better with my micro here. Just keep backing away, like so, and you can see that the King Tiger can do nothing against the archer. Bang! There we go. 4 to 5 pens there, and very easy just to kite back like that and deal with a big heavy like the King Tiger. And so I recommend the archer over something potentially maybe like the 17-pounder, because the 17-pounder is very vulnerable to indirect fire. Things like the Stuka or a Nebelwerfer, you'll be taking a lot of damage with that 17-pounder. You might lose the towing truck, the CMP truck that tows it around, and then the 17-pounder, is then purely a sitting duck because it can't go anywhere because nothing can tow it, and then it'll just get killed by an off-map barrage. At least this is your mobile 17-pounder that can fairly quickly get in and out of a fight, and therefore it's got much chance of staying alive. And if you want to chase something down, you want something mobile. This archer is mobile, whereas a towed 17-pounder is, it can be towed around, but it's a lot less mobile because it needs to be towed, right? The archer can be a lot more aggressive. So this is your general build order for Brits. So early game is this. Okay, 2 Aussies, 2-pounder. Your AT section, potentially, depending if you need a bit more anti-tank capability, you could potentially skip this and go up if you're doing okay. You don't think you need some extra AT. And then you're probably wanting to be going for your platoon command post, getting yourself a Stuart out and trying to get some damage done with that. Then taking up, get yourself your company command post, get yourself a Matilda, and starting to get to your footman guards. Don't forget, this is not the end of your game. You've got your training center at the back here, and when you can afford to go for upgrades, you should. Your probably first upgrade should be your infantry training upgrade, so that you can your Aussies as well as your guards can benefit, and your sappers as well all benefit from that big chunk of experience. Sappers instantly get vet 1 for that, and that makes them 15% harder to hit, so not a bad little upgrade there. And you can see your Aussies almost get vet 1 as well. They're 800. They get 800 free veterancy there. And we'll just hover over this again. You can see that all of these units will gain 10% accuracy, 10% more reload speed, and squads are 10% harder to hit in general. So, you want to be getting this infantry training upgrade when you can. It's fairly infantry heavy build, especially, but you got your Aussies and these footman guards, right? After going for your infantry training, I'd probably advise going for your armor training, so you're buffing up your Matilda and your archer. So let's just buy that now. They get a chunk of experience. 1,250 experience, so getting a big chunk towards their veterancy. Bear in mind, this veterancy does not apply to your Stuart, so you do have to go for the light vehicle training to buff that up. But buffing that up will vet up your Stuart to instantly vet 1, and when it gets vet 1, it will get 25% acceleration and deceleration as well. But I advise going for your armor training first, then maybe a light vehicle training to buff up your Stuart, possibly CMP truck as well, and then lastly probably your T-weapon training to maybe buff up that 2-pounder. Let's just quickly test something here. Let's get ourselves a fresh 2-pounder out. Now, if you buy this training here, veterancy team weapon training, buy it, bang. Unfortunately, it doesn't get instant vet 1, but almost does. You can see it's 800 out of 900 experience. So buying that, even if you were to lose a 2-pounder and you call on a new one, you're very close to getting vet 1, and that's where this unit shines, obviously, with its target weak point, as we've seen to great effect earlier on in this video. So what I'm going to do for you guys now is just demonstrate how you'd use this composition very effectively to completely dominate a King Tiger that might be pushing you unsupported, for instance. So here we have a King Tiger that's going to be pushing an attack move onto my army here. We're going to have the Matilda forward here, acting as a kind of a meat shield to take maybe the initial King Tiger's first blow. We're going to activate the spotting mode now of the Stuart here to get vision, so we can see this King Tiger coming with plenty of warning. Archer's going to fire in straight away. We can then activate the 2-pounder's target weak point now onto the King Tiger to stop it now from maybe being able to run away, because if he tries to run away now he can't. We're then also going to pop on the guard's ability to stun as well. And yeah, there you go. King Tiger dead incredibly quickly and only managed to get one shot off in that entire time. So if you utilize your abilities correctly, and you know, you've got your units set up in a great kind of composition here and supporting each other, then you can take on any kind of Axis heavy that comes your way. Also got to bear in mind that the Stuart is providing this kind of passive buff here with 10% accuracy, 20% reload speed, and 5+ vision range on all nearby units, infantry units as well. As you can see, the guards are getting that bonus, the 2-pounders getting that bonus as well. So there you go. Well, that brings us to the end of the video there, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and you use this build order to win many games as Brits in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a thumbs up and maybe leaving a comment below. And I will catch you in the next video, guys. Take care.